Oops.
Hello, YouTube. Welcome to Crossfire. This is going to be our dealer chat. This is three dealers sitting around talking. We're going to be talking about Vegas, and we're going to talk about things within the casino that come from a dealer's perspective, or sometimes from a player perspective. And today we just want to discuss life as a dealer, in case anybody is curious. I want to start out with just how do you become a dealer, at least within Vegas, because I know outside of the state and outside of the country things are very, very different. But within Vegas, it's a fairly basic progression. You go to a dealer school. I'm not going to list any dealer schools. I'll let you do your own research on that. Go to a dealer school. You'll pay for the games that you wish to learn. It may seem a little bit pricey to you. You're probably looking, if you want to learn all the games, you might be looking at $800 to $1,000. Most people spend about $500 to $600 and learn three main games. But if you think about it this way, how much are you going to spend going to a trade school to learn a trade for a job for the rest of your life? You're probably going to spend $15,000 to $20,000. So it's a reasonable investment, considering that you're probably going to make that much in your first 2 weeks, because when you start out, you won't be making quite the rock'em sock'em money. But you go to a dealing school. The dealing school is going to take you anywhere between 4 to say 16, 17 weeks, depending on what games you learn, how often you're able to make it to school, and just in general your learning progression. Everybody is different, and some games are more difficult than others, and some things just easy for some people to pick up and difficult for other people to pick up. So, but you're going to learn all the skills of dealing, from cutting checks to how these are supposed to be set up, which are going to be in further videos as well if you're interested. And then once you have finished your dealing school, the school itself should be able to set you up with what are called break-in casinos. Those are off-strip casinos. There are a few that are on the strip, and they are known as break-ins because they break you in. And they definitely will break your butt in. The typically local casinos, the clientele that goes there knows that all the dealers are brand new, so they're also going to be a big part of breaking you in. You learn the ropes, you learn how to get comfortable, you learn how to do your job, and generally you're looking at, as a dealer, you're a tip-based profession, and generally you're looking at starting out at break-in casinos where you're going to make anywhere between $30 to $50 a day. There are a few break-ins that do better, at least pre-pandemic they did better. But in general, you're looking at $30 to $50 a day, most likely, as far as what you're going to make tip-wise. And from there, you're going to progress on. We call those a Tier 1 casino as a break-in. And then from there, after about 6 months, you're going to look at trying to get into a Tier 2 casino. Likely still off-strip, probably within the same company you're already with, just a higher-end casino where now your daily tips might be from $50 to $90. You're most likely going to fall around the $70 to $75 range. Still mostly regular, or mostly locals. So you're going to see the same faces every single day, which we're very delighted to do. And that there you're going to continue polishing your skills with possibly a little bit more higher limit, a little bit heavier action. And then from there, you may be happy where you're at. There's a lot of people that will stay. There's people that will stay at their break-in casino for 20 years and work their way up. And then from there, but if you want to continue your progression from there, you're likely to try and go to a Tier 3, Tier 4 casino, which at that point you're looking at some of the resorts off the strip. There's three main ones. I'm not gonna list any names. Actually, I think we're probably fairly safe in this aspect, listing names of casinos. When you're talking about the Tier 3, the higher end casinos off the strip, now you're looking at, again, the resorts: Red Rock Resort and Casino, Green Valley Ranch Resort, South Point Resort. Those are fantastic properties that, for the most part, is strip money. There's very few places on the strip that are going to equal or exceed what they make. So once people land at those spots, oftentimes they will stay there. Or you can look for some of the Tier 3 places on the strip. Now you're looking at places like the Link, Mirage even. Mirage they may think they're Tier 4, but they're really not. They're Tier 3. And then from there, after 4 or 5 years, you might want to try and get into a Bellagio or a Wynn or a Cosmo or an Aria, although a lot of dealers will actually avoid those places. So a lot of dealers, very good, very experienced dealers that avoid the strip. I personally am a full-time dealer. I work at one of the resorts off the strip. Not interested in going onto the strip at all. I like my locals. I like my regulars. I like seeing, for the most part, the same faces day in and day out. Although we're also about 50% tourists, so I get that daily change up as well. But that is life as a dealer. Now from there, you can try and move on.
Right.
And at that point now we're talking on the hierarchy of within a casino. Louis?
Oh yeah, so within the hierarchy, every casino does it a little bit differently. For the most part, things used to be you were a dealer, maybe a floor person, or what we call in the business as a dual rate, which is your dealer half the time, your floor person half the time, then you get promoted to a full-time dealer. Then after that, you become a pit manager. They don't really have those anymore. What they have now are pencils.
Interrupt real fast.
Go ahead.
From a dual rate, you would become a full-time floor. You're already a full-time dealer before you ever become a dual rate. You said full-time dealer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, pardon me. You're a dealer, you get promoted to dual rate, you're on the floor, and you deal half the time, then you become a full-time floor person. Then you may become a pit manager or a pencil. Then from then on, you can be a backup shift, and then a shift, and then a CM, or what they call a director of table games, depending on where you're at. Every casino does them a bit differently.
Yep. Things definitely start being able to split off at a certain point, depending on what route you want to take as well.
Right.
A lot of casinos have gotten away from the pencil, where it's just one of the floors and it's just kind of a rotating spot. And for those of you that are wondering, when he said floor and then pit manager or pit boss, a lot of people think that every single person in a suit is a pit, because that's what it was back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
But that is 100% incorrect. The floors are supervisors. That's you would consider floors as a low-level supervisor, whereas pits are middle management, or even possibly the upper end of the low supervisor point. So floors are the ones that you generally will see in a suit. They're the ones that are in charge of either a specific table, if it's within craps, or a specific number of tables, 4 or 5 tables. They have a section of the pit that they are in charge of, that they will watch. They will supervise the dealers. They will watch the hands being dealt, make sure everything is correct, make sure people get paid properly. The pit boss will actually be in charge of a few floors. They will run the entire pit. They may have 2, 3, or 4 floors under. They may even run multiple pits.
Yeah.
So there is a difference between floors and pit bosses. As far as what they can do for you, it's actually about the same. Floors will be able to check your players' cards, sign you up for players' cards, see if you're eligible for comps and things along those lines, answer any questions for you. In fact, oftentimes, if you go and ask a floor for something, they may hand you off to, or ask a pit for something, they may hand you off to a floor, because the pit has so many other things that they are dealing with at that time.
Unless it's rooms, and then most of the time, it's got to go through a pit manager.
That's true. Yeah, when it comes to comp rooms, things like that, the pits will be the ones that take care of you. Now, from there is where things can definitely split off. What Louis was saying with assistant or backup shift,
Right.
The shift manager, the shift boss, is basically in charge of, for the most part, the entire casino during their particular shift. There's three main shifts within a casino. So whereas a floor or pit are in charge of some table games, the shift boss will be in charge of the table games, the security, the porters that are doing all the cleaning, possibly even the restaurants, the slots. They will be in charge of every department. They are running the entire casino if the casino manager isn't there.
Big jackpots also.
Correct. If there's a major jackpot that's hit, a progressive, something along those lines, that's where the shift boss or the assistant shift will come into play, and they will come and handle the paperwork and deal with that. And then from there is where I've noticed there can be a little bit of a divergence depending on some properties have different types of things. From there, you can definitely move on shift boss to casino manager, which is almost like the general manager of the casino in charge of all the shift bosses. But then there's also other areas such as director of table games, director of slots, things like that. Director of player development. Even things like head hosts or even becoming hosts and things along those lines. So at that point, there's some divergence as well as far as what you can do, if those are even available. Where I work at, I'm not sure if we have. I don't think we have a director of table games and things like that. We have our shift managers, our casino managers, and
Technically, we do.
our casino manager
CM
is technically director of table games for us as well. But he runs the casino, every aspect of it.
Some casinos have.
Yes.
Now, some casinos will share a casino manager or director of table games. I'm sure. I'm not going to name off the casinos, but there are a couple strip properties that you have one casino managers that will run a couple casinos on the strip, but of course they're within the same company. MGM runs, they're going to run another MGM property. Boyd is going to run another Boyd property, so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. They do a lot of sharing within. A director of table games may also be the director of table games for 2 or 3 different properties as well within the same umbrella company, of course. And that's generally how the hierarchy of the casinos works. And just like any other business, the further you move up, the more difficult it becomes to move up.
Oh, yeah.
For every floor, there's probably been 30 or 40 dealers that roll through, not just all the full-timers, but ones that deal for a while, then leave. So for every floor that gets promoted, there's probably 30, 40 dealers that don't become floors. There's many that don't want to become floors either. Right. And then same thing going from floor to pit. Well, if a pit is in charge of 3 or 4 floors, that means that there's far less pit jobs than there are floor jobs. So not every floor is going to move up. And then of course there's one casino manager, and one shift per shift, and then there's multiple shift managers within the casino.
To get a little bit more in depth with the hierarchy. The hierarchy of the casino, in terms of being employed by the casino, the hierarchy is very important. It's very important to follow. You can't just jump over one person. If you have an issue or there's something that needs to be done, or let's say you have a question or something along those lines, or the hierarchy is very important. You have to go step by step by step by step by step. You can't just jump from, hey, I'm a dealer, I have an issue with a floor person, and then go talk to the casino manager. That is a big no-no.
One thing with the casinos as well that is going to be different than other industries. Obviously, every job will have its rules, have the rules and policies, procedures that you must follow. The casinos are very, very strict with those rules. I spent 20 years in another industry where, of course, we had things like, you can't be late, you can't miss shifts, stuff like that. But it was still fairly in-depth. People coming in 1 minute late, 2 minutes late, and nothing ever said, nobody ever noticed. Well, the casinos, because all the departments split up, it's much stricter. We clock in electronically. If we clock in a minute late, then we will get written up. It's hands down going to happen, and it's not even up to the people that are going to write us up. Right. It's going to be HR that's going to be contacting, saying, here's the write-up, this person must sign it. If you miss a shift, you're going to get written up for that, and you will get points. Same for being late, for calling out. You'll get points, and at a certain point, your points have accrued enough that you will be fired, and there's nothing you can do about it, because again, the people that are firing you aren't the ones making that decision. It is HR or payroll or the general manager or the casino manager that is saying, okay, these rules have been broken this many times. Other jobs, you can come strolling in a minute late, 2 minutes late. This job, you can't.
And one of the biggest cardinal sins for dealers coming back from your break late.
Oof.
Because that minute that you come back late, the next person goes a minute late, and then it just screws up everything.
Right. I worked for a company, I'm not going to name the company, but they were very punctual on clocking in and clocking out. You had to write the time, you had to use an electronic device to clock in with a fingerprint, sign the time you wrote in, and if you clock out, depending on whatever time you clock out, you have to write it to the minute. If you get 1 minute overtime, you have to sign off on the sheet and write down that you got that 1 minute of overtime.
I worked for the same company, different property, but for the same company, and it was absolutely crazy. We had to clock in on the minute, so if we were scheduled at 6 o'clock, we had to clock in at 6 o'clock.
There's a big line waiting.
Yes, we had 2 clock-in terminals and 30 people that needed to clock in within a minute. But here's the thing: all those people that we were tapping out that were out at 6 were supposed to clock out at 6.
Oh yeah.
So we had to clock in at 6. They had to clock out at 6. So naturally, the sheet of filling out your 1 minute of overtime was just crazy. Yeah, it was insane. I worked for another company that we were allowed to clock in 5 minutes early.
Yes.
And that made it so much easier for people to clock out on time. But yeah, it's very, very, very important. And for the last subject is going to be just how the shifts work within a casino.
So every shift is at a casino. You can have three shifts for the most part. You're gonna have your day shift, your swing shift, and your graveyard shift. Now I've worked all three of these shifts at different casinos. I've worked all three. For the most part, the shifts from casino to casino are relatively similar. You have your swing shift that you're either going to start at 7 or 8 o'clock. You clock out at 3, 4. Graveyard, you either start at 3 or 4. Day shift, I believe it's 12 to 8 or 11 to 7 for the most part. Now you have little, depending on what games you deal or what game you're going to be dealing that day, your schedule is subject to change. You can maybe come in at work at 10 to 6 or 9 to 5 or depending on every shift, you can come in at 2 in the morning and clock out at 10. It's all relative.
And I know you see that a lot more often, like you guys are in the dice pits.
Right.
Yep. There's ours is definitely staggered within our what's called the swing shift, which is the I guess you would consider the evening shift or the night shift that goes until early morning, a few hours after midnight. We have crews that come in at varying hours, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So on any given day, we might have 5 groups that are all out at different times. But here's the kicker: when you work in a casino as a dealer, your out time, consider the suggestion. If there are players on your table and they are unable to close it because every other table is full, you're not going home. Period. It's not like other jobs where people can say, "Oh, this is the end of my shift. I have to go do this. I have to go do that." No, you have to stay.
Right.
And if you try and pull that, you'll be pulled aside once you are able to come off the table and be told that if you cannot stay late, you're in the wrong job and you're going to have to find another place to work. Does it happen very often? No. But when it does happen, it seems to always happen at the worst time when you're running off 3 hours of sleep and you've had a really long, rough day.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, the out times, definitely consider those a suggestion. But it goes both ways. There are also early outs where you can leave an hour early, 2 hours early. It can happen. Generally, it's best to just consider that you're going to work an 8-hour shift and hope that it's only 8.
Right.
And thank you, YouTube, for joining us for Crossfire. Make sure you hit the like button at the bottom and subscribe to our channel. We have weekly content coming out in multiple categories. Thank you.